Hello everyone, welcome to What's Up in Portugal. I'm your host Perry, and today we're going to be doing a special episode on the biography of the writer, politician, and revolutionary Almeida Garrett. If you saw our first episode in Porto, if you did, we love you, and if you didn't, stop this video right now and go watch that first. Then you will know that there is a statue of Almeida Garrett outside Porto Town Hall. Such a grand place must mean that he was a pretty important guy, right? Well, let's find out. Almeida Garrett was born in February 1799 in Porto as João Leitão da Silva. His father was a fidalgo, a sort of nobleman in the royal household. Ooh. He was one of 5 children and lived his early years in Vila Nova de Gaia, famously writing later on in his life that he was born in Porto but raised in Gaia. In 1809, when he was about 10 years old, his family fled Porto, escaping the advancing French forces of Napoleon to the Azores. He remained there until the end of the war, when he finally returned to Portugal to study law in Coimbra. In 1818, he published O Retrato de Venus under the pen name Almeida Garrett, which is what he would be known as for the rest of his life. The epic poem gave him a bad reputation among conservative folk, who saw it as immoral, materialistic, and atheistic. Naughty boy. He was sued for that, but ultimately won. A couple of years later, Portugal was basically in the middle of a crisis. We'll cover this on a future episode, but as quickly as I can resume it, 1807, French invade. Portuguese royal family flees to Brazil. 1820, Napoleon has been defeated and is imprisoned on St. Helena in the middle of the South Atlantic Ocean. And the Portuguese family is still living the good life in Brazil, sitting on the beach and drinking caipirinha. During the French occupation of Spain, Spanish liberals established a liberal constitution that basically said the king couldn't rule with absolute power anymore. This had a heavy influence on a group of people living in Porto who were exposed to international literature and philosophies. They saw Portugal's total reliance on traditional practices and ways of life as a hindrance to progress. So they kind of overthrew the British puppet government and established their own national assembly to further their radical ideas. Almeida Garrett's contribution to this were a couple of patriotic verses that was quickly distributed among the people of his hometown of Porto. Garrett married Luisa Candida Mendoza, who was about 12 years old at the time. Ew. A couple of years later, he was forced into exile in England because of his involvement in the Liberal Revolution, this time because of a coup d'etat by the pretender Miguel, Pedro IV's brother. Just wait for our special on Pedro IV. But Garrett's time in England greatly influenced his political and literary thoughts. He was exposed to and began associating with Romanticism, including the works of William Shakespeare and Sir Walter Scott. He wrote 2 poems in 1825 and 1826 called Camões and Dona Branca, which are widely considered to be among the first, if not the first, works of Portuguese Romanticism. Romanticism was very briefly an artistic, literary, musical, and intellectual movement in the first half of the 19th century in Europe that focused on emotions and individualism and glorified the past. They were basically the 19th century version of emos. It was a reaction to the fast-paced industrialization brought about by the Industrial Revolution. I encourage you to read more about Romanticism because it had a significant effect on European and ultimately world history, but it also greatly influenced Almeida Garrett and the Portuguese liberal movement. Garrett returned to Portugal, but had to leave again because of that pesky pretender Miguel. That guy again. But he finally returned with the liberal army under Dom Pedro IV of Portugal and Dom Pedro I of Brazil. Like I said, wait for our special on him, landing at Mindelo and taking part in the Great Siege of Porto. The liberalist victory meant that Garrett didn't have to flee Portugal anymore, and he could finally stay and do some writing and some thinking. He got involved in politics and became known as a great orator in Parliament. He was asked by the government, now a constitutional monarchy, to set up a national theatre. With one teeny tiny problem. There was no such thing. He had to write plays, find actors, gather audiences, and basically revive a tradition that had been all but dead for centuries, thanks to government censorship and the Portuguese Inquisition. Ha! Nobody expects the Portuguese Inquisition! Wait, that's not right. In 1845, Garrett published O Arco de Santana, a significant step away from his previous style. His prose became more complex and subjective, and he experimented in what is considered his greatest and most influential work in Portuguese Romanticism, Viagens na Minha Terra. Viagens na Minha Terra is part travel book and part family drama, represented by the characters Carlos, a young idealistic liberal, and his father, an austere and absolutist friar. Can you guess which one is the bad guy in this story? The book is not only important for its conflict amongst the 2 opposing ideologies, but its writing style was completely different from anything that had been written before in Portugal. Genres are mixed with classical and vulgar speech, at times recounting the journey through the countryside with a journalist's perspective, and tearing into family drama with a novelist's mighty hands. Damn, right? His works and his patriotism was rewarded by the government, and Almeida Garrett became a viscount in 1851. By that time, his marriage to Luisa Candida Medozzi was over, and he was shacked up with Adelaide de Villepastor, with whom he had 3 children. He remained involved in politics until his death on December 9, 1854. He was buried at the Cemitério dos Prazeres, but in 1903 he was moved and laid to rest in the National Pantheon at the Jerónimos Monastery in Lisbon, next to Alexandre Herculano and Luís Vaz de Camões, 2 of the greatest writers of Portugal. Because, of course, everything goes in threes. Garrett has also given his name to streets, squares, and monuments spread throughout Portugal. If you want to explore more of Almeida Garrett's works, great! Go for it! Absolutely do it! There is just one tiny problem. Not a lot of his works has been translated into English or into any other language. So I guess that means that you'll have to learn Portuguese if you want to read any of his stuff. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this episode. We really hope that you enjoyed it. We've added some links down below in the description about the people and topics that we've been talking about today. Be sure to check them out for more information on them. My question for you is, how many of you have actually read any of Almeida Garrett's works? Did you enjoy them? Did you think they sucked? We'd love to hear about them in the comments below. Be sure to visit us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Click that thumbs up button if you enjoyed this episode. Press subscribe if you want to get more episodes such as this one. And be sure to check out our Patreon page. If you don't know what that is, you definitely need to take a look. So until next time, from all of us here in What's Up in Portugal, ciao!